Hey everybody, good afternoon. It is Kelly and I'm reading you chapter 4 of Clementine and the Spring Trip by Sara Pennypacker. So we're on chapter 4. The other chapters you can find in this playlist. So you can read chapters 1, 2, and 3, and here's 4. Here we go. All you have to do is sit back and enjoy and listen to the book. So good to see you. Chapter 4. At school Tuesday morning, after the yet and not yet stuff, I had a big surprise. A girl with short black hair and a purple backpack was standing on the other side of Mr. DeMatte's desk. When we were all in our seats, our teacher said, "Class, please say hello to our new student. Olive, I know I can count on you to make her feel welcome." And there she is, a new student in class. Mr. DeMatte's made us introduce ourselves, and then he led Olive to the empty desk in the back of the room. When he told her that she could put her stuff inside, we all gasped. Nobody had ever been in that desk since Baxter left in September. Even though he had only been with us for a few days, I really missed Baxter. And not just because he'd let you look at his webbed toes as long as you gave him a quarter, but he also pried the legs off of his chair, loosened the screws on the coat hook so our jackets fell down all morning, and filled the classroom soap dispenser with creamed corn from lunch. And that was just his first day of school. Oh my gosh. Because I have extra great hearing, I overheard what our teacher said to Principal Rice out in the hall when he handed Baxter over that afternoon. He certainly is a resourceful young man. Okay, fine. I had to go up and sharpen my pencil with my ear stretched out to the cracked open door to overhear the conversation. Resourceful is an understatement, I overheard Mrs. Rice say when she returned to him half an hour later. "Clementine, what are you doing?" my teacher asked when he came back into the room with Baxter. I held up my pencil, which was by now sharpened on both ends. "And excuse me, I please need to use the dictionary." "Thank you," I said. I thumbed through the dictionary until I found that word, resourceful. It means able to use any means and any ways available to achieve goals. And our teacher and Mrs. Rice were right. Baxter sure was resourceful. As we were waiting for the buses after school, Baxter told us that in the half hour he had been gone, he had managed to steal the minute hand from Mrs. Rice's principal clock and reverse the cold and hot faucets in the grown-ups only bathroom. So he had achieved some goals all right. The question I had was about his ways and means available. "Wow, so you bring tools to school?" I asked him. Baxter smirked. "Tools are for amateurs," he said. He slid a plastic bag from his backpack and held it out. Inside was a popsicle stick, a paper clip, a pack of gum, a couple of thumbtacks, and a bunch of rubber bands. "I'm a professional. I can take apart anything with just what I've got in this bag," he said. Some of the kids didn't believe him. "You couldn't have done all that with Mrs. Rice right there. I think you're lying," Charlie had said to him on the bus the next day. In return, Baxter had stolen Charlie's sandwich out of his lunchbox and replaced it with a rubber frog. This made Charlie really mad when he found out, because it was lunch, and he said, "It was egguna. I invented it. Egg salad and tuna fish. He's a liar and a thief. I want my sandwich." Nobody else was mad at Baxter, and we didn't care if he was lying or not. We just liked having him around. But then, 3 days later, he was gone. "Baxter moved to Candace," I told Margaret on the bus that afternoon. "Ha," she snorted. "That's a good one. He probably just got arrested. A prison is probably where he moved to." When I told my classmates what Margaret had said, they all agreed with me that this was good news. Baxter would have no problem busting out of any prison in the world. He'd be back soon with some pretty good stories, too, we figured. All year long, we'd been keeping an eye on his empty desk. But now, this new Olive girl was sitting there at his desk. At recess, everybody crowded around to find out if she was as interesting as Baxter. "Can you use your thumbnail as a screwdriver?" asked Willie. "Can you pop a lock with a paper clip?" asked Charlie. Olive shook her head no to both of these. Have you ever been in prison? I asked her. No, said Olive, never. She was looking kind of embarrassed by now, so I gave her a cheer-up smile. Me neither, I admitted, and I can't do any of that great stuff Baxter could. Hearing that we had this in common seemed to perk Olive up. And hey, Clementine, she said, we both have food names too. Olive, Clementine. And I stopped to think about this. All my life, I wished I had a different food name. I call my brother a different vegetable every day, just to be fair, but it's still not. Nobody else got a food name, I tell my parents over and over. I'm the only one. And I was, except for Mrs. Rice, who didn't count because it was her last name. But now, finally, was another kid with a first name that was a food. And there's Olive and all the kids asking her all kinds of questions. If she was as cool as Baxter. And suddenly, I wasn't so sure I wanted to share. I turned back to Olive. Do you ever wish you had a regular name? I asked. Olive looked surprised. Of course not. Olive is a great name. Plus, it's also a language. All 19 heads, including mine, snapped to attention at that. Olive language, Olive said. I invented it. You put olive into every syllable you say. She pointed to her shoes. Shoe olives. She pointed to Willie's cap and said, Colavap. And then she pointed to my jacket and said, Jolava jacket Olivia. All the kids acted as if this was the most amazing miracle anyone could do in the world. They began naming the things around us in her language. Trolive, Swoiling Solivet, Dolive Dodgeball. My name is great too, I interrupted. Nobody even looked at me. Clementine is a language too, you know. A couple of kids glanced at me. I decided to say, a secret language. A secret language in my new language. But I had to stop to invent one first. What I invented is this. Put the word Clementine into every syllable you say. I practiced Clementine language in my head, and let me tell you, it was not easy. By the time I was ready to say the first word, Clementine, Clementine, all the kids had gathered around Olive. Wow, Lily sighed. Talking Olive makes you sound like you're from another country. Well, so what, I said. My language makes you sound like you come from another planet. Olive spun around. What planet, she said. Zephon, I made it up right away. This is a lucky thing about me. Stuff comes out of my mouth without me even thinking about it. Planet Zephon, I said. Zephon. You wouldn't like it there, Olive. It's a place where they don't have any olives. When I got home from school, I went right into the kitchen for a snack. Margaret had spent the whole bus ride home, reminding me about those eating sound rolls, and it made me really hungry for loud food. So I grabbed a crunchy granola bar out of the cupboard, and I took a big, crunching bite. Immediately, my cat, Moisturizer, came skittering into the kitchen to see if I was eating cat crunchies. But he saw it was just human food. He turned his nose up and began playing the new game he invented. I am not interested in you. There's Moisturizer acting like he is not interested in Clementine. I walked over to the window above the sink, and I pretended to be fascinated by the feet walking by on the sidewalk. In a second, I heard his soft paws coming over to stop beside me. But when I looked down, he yawned to show me how not interested in me he was. He sat down at the table, and then he sauntered over to the table too, as if he was just a big coincidence that we both were there. When I looked over to say hi to him, he flopped down and stared at his tail, as if he had no idea how this miraculous toy had become attached to his back. What a silly cat. Just then, my mother came into the kitchen. She didn't say, "Hi, honey, how was your day?" like she usually does. Instead, she yanked open the refrigerator and stared into it exactly the way a starving wolf stares into an empty rabbit hole. Oh no. Which I saw went on the Nature Channel, except Mom wasn't actually drooling. I knew what this meant. My mother was having a craving. When you're pregnant, you get to eat whatever you want, together with whatever else you want, whenever you want, just by saying the magic words, "I'm having a craving." Bentley, come here. Bentley, come help me read the book to the kids. Bentley, here's Bentley. He likes being in the videos. Let's see. We'll get him on there. He likes reading to you. So, oh my gosh, just by saying I'm having a craving. When my mother, when you always hear, what you hear is always about pickles and ice cream, but my mother has never craved either of those things, not even separately. My father buys them every week, just in case though. At the end of the week, he sits down with a big, gigantic bowl of ice cream and a side dish of pickles so he can use them up. The things I do for your mother, he says. Then he goes to get a fresh supply of pickles and ice cream and also raw clams, which is what my mother is always craving. There are no clams in here, my mother wailed so loudly that Mrs. Jacoby on the top floor probably heard her. There are no clams. I will go out of my mind if I can't have some clams. Right now, my mom said. Oh, Mom, we ran out of them yesterday, my dad said. My mom spun around to give him a look that said she was N-O-T, not kidding, about needing raw clams right now. My dad threw up his palms and backed away. Then he gestured for me to come to the front door. We put on our Red Sox caps, which Mitchell insists we wear once baseball season opens, and we headed out to the fish market. Now, clams, he said, when we were outside. This is a really good sign, let me tell you. This means your little brother or sister is going to have a rock-hard head, like a clamshell. Our little guy is going to be able to split firewood with a head like that. He or she will be able to butt right through a cement wall. A torpedo head like that's going to come in awfully handy in this family. What did Mom crave when she was pregnant with me? I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Pineapple, my dad said. She'd eat it with anything. Pineapple with peanut butter. Pineapple with mustard, pineapple with chili. She couldn't get enough of pineapple. And that's how you knew I'd be sweet, I said, like I always do. Don't be ridiculous, Clementine, my father said, the way he always does. He rapped the top of my head with his knuckles. That's how we knew you'd have spiky green skin. Ah, silly dad. All right, chapter 4. That was chapter 4, and I will be reading you chapter 5 in just a moment.